It's been a crazy week. It seems like from the moment go, everything was working against me. There's a lower lock on the door handle which I never bothered to get keyed, and every once in a while it slips into the lock position, but I've always had other ways to get into the house. I knew I was in a little bit of a pickle when it locked on me. This seemed to set the tone for the week. I needed to get inside the house to get access to the tools and some nails and screws that I needed to work on the shed, but I also needed to get a fire going where I could warm my dog up. Every time we get up here, I let Ruger out and he takes off on a run, and he's usually gone for about an hour. Then he comes back either covered in snow or covered in burrs. Now that we have enough snow on the ground, I try to make an effort to have a warm place for him to dry out and be comfortable. The sole objective for this week was to get the water tank shed finished and insulated. I'm not really building a permanent shed as much as I'm building something that'll get us into spring and summer without letting that water tank freeze up. I will likely take the shed down in the future and do something more permanent that I'm confident in, but the bottom line is if I don't get something around this shed, there's no way we can move in until at least summer. I had a bunch of old 2x8s that I ripped into half so I could use as much of the existing lumber that I had versus buying new stuff, but I still had to buy about 40 2x4x10s. I'm going to use the Roxul insulation, which I already have. If I had done this job about 2 months ago, I wouldn't have had anywhere near as many challenges as I had this week. The first issue I had was just getting up the hill. The only way I could safely get up that hill was using the excavator to pull myself up and then using the blade to hold me up while I repositioned the front arm. It took me 2 days just to get all the materials up on the hill that I needed. In the meantime, there was virtually no visibility, and it was snowing anywhere from 4 to 6 inches every day. It really wasn't that cold, but it's sure hard to work in. I'm using screws to put everything together so I can break it down without too much work. And the truth is, if this was going to be long term, I probably wouldn't build it this way, but I'm just trying to get something up and in place so I can stop worrying about the water. I've had the water turned off for about a month now. It's been down below zero a number of times. And while the tank itself probably wouldn't freeze, the pipe coming out of the bottom would most certainly freeze. By framing it horizontally like this, I'm giving myself a place to screw off all of the corrugated tin that I'm going to use for the siding. There's really no structural value in framing it this way, but once I put that siding on there, that changes everything. I would like to add a second water tank to this setup next summer, and I would either like to build some sort of an earth ship or maybe an underground type building where it's insulated by the earth and guaranteed not to ever freeze. Now the water temperature comes out of the ground consistently at about 45 to 48 degrees. And as long as that water gets used, it should not freeze. But again, that pipe going into the ground and going down to the house is what I'm worried about. Because the water's consistently 45 to 48 degrees, that will actually also keep the room warm and prevent that pipe from freezing. But I've got to have some sort of insulation to retain as much as I can. Because it was so difficult to get materials up on the hill, I'm trying to make it work with what I have. This side of the hill is north facing, so it never quite thaws out, and there's always a little bit of snow sitting on it. So dragging that excavator up the hill has been quite a challenge. A snow machine, or maybe some sort of a tracked snowcat, would probably be ideal. But this is not something I have, and I'll have to keep this in mind for next year. The truth is, I hope to never have to build something like this under these circumstances ever again. I think it was 2 winters ago when I was setting the panels for the foundation that is now going to be the shop, and it was the kind of job that I swore I would never do again. Everything I did was taking twice as much time and twice as hard as it should have, but somehow I managed to get it done. I put this little shed on the same level, even though it's not quite as stressful as that was then. I kind of went through my pile of leftover stuff, and I had some old bubble wrap insulation that I wanted to use, as well as some old pieces of Tyvek. I read a quote this week that said, "When you're on the right path, the universe will conspire to reward you." And while I feel this way most of the time, for some reason this particular project felt like it was about 10 times harder than it should have been. I almost feel like something's working against me on this particular project. The truth is, without water we have nothing. So there may very well be something working against us trying to get this done. Without going off on a tangent, if you believe in good, there has to be opposition. I definitely felt that this week. This shed is being built for one reason and one reason only, and that's to retain enough heat to keep it from freezing. It's not going to be seen very often. I don't care what it looks like. The corrugated tin that I'm using is not pretty, but it should be sufficient. I thought for sure by now I would be almost finished with the rest of the siding on the house, but because of the weather, this whole week's just been a crazy challenge. The good news is next week's weather looks really good, and I hope to get the siding finished next week and then be back inside for the rest of winter. I'll get up here first part of the week and get the roof finished, and then I hope and pray I do not have to come back up on this hill until summer.